Well, I'm doing it again. I'm learning how to use another medium. I've used markers before, but this is the first work I'm doing with acrylic markers. And my subject, the red-winged blackbird. And here are all my markers. First, I use a white drawing pencil from Derwent to draw in the outline of and a few highlights of the red-winged blackbird. This is a fast forward or a time lapse or one of those things. Sharpie's Creative Markers don't have names, so you can give them whatever names you want. This is a sort of a lime green, but there's a blue tinge to it, at least in my eye. And I am just going up and down and moving around arbitrarily, abstractly, laying in color. The background in the photograph was blurry, which is very common. Now I'm adding a light turquoise color. The markers will cover up whatever is beneath them. If what is beneath them is dark, then it will take more than one coat to build up. If you're working on white, you may not need more than one coat of paint. But here I am working on black paper. I've decided that I'm going to use the Liquetex green marker. It's a little more fluid and a little bit greener than the greens from Sharpie. And I've moved back to that yellowish green. And back and forth. Now I'm using my finger to blend. I'm still trying to find a good blending tool other than my wonderful fingers. Which, if you do this, you will find you have a layer of acrylic paint on your finger afterwards, which has to be scrubbed away, not just washed away. Doesn't rub or blend that easily. It's easier to do the blending when you're doing one color on top of another. And there's that blue-green again. I covered up the branch, no big deal. I can draw it out again. The wonderful thing about acrylic markers is that you can paint right over whatever was underneath just the way you can with ordinary acrylic paint. Now I'm bringing some purple into, I've finished up the bottom and I'm bringing some purple into the top. This helps to create shadow and depth. And again, blending with the finger. I have some tools for blending pastels that I'm going to be using in my next piece. My next program will be explaining various aspects of using the creative markers and other acrylic markers. And now I'm bringing in the tree trunks and I'm using yellow for that. And I'm really not concerned with getting it completely solid. Some of the black is going to show up, and that's fine because that gives it a sense of a texture and a cartoonish feeling. I'm not going for the oh so wonderful, super realistic image here. Obviously it's realistic, but it's not super realistic, hyper realistic, photorealistic, or any of the other realistics. But what I am interested in doing is sort of reliving my old childhood days when I taught myself to draw by copying figures from comic books. I was holding a pencil when I was 2 years old, and my mother used to give me old cards and photos to scribble on. When I was able to read, I started getting comic books along with all my other friends, and I would sit and draw from the comic books, and that's where I studied art. And this is essentially a cartoon style. Right now I'm using the green and the blue to put in leaves. And I gotta think. I'm going to outline with a fine point Sharpie, just the way comic books are outlined, or when you're doing, which I have often, watercolor and pen and ink. You can draw in your drawing first and paint within the lines, or you can outline your painting. In this case, I'm outlining my painting, or the objects of my painting. And this is the red from the creative set. I'm using the brush point marker, and I'm using their red. Their red is not as bright as I would have liked. In the end, what I did was went back over the Red Wing with the Liquetex red. It was much brighter. And Liquetex is essentially a master of acrylic paint, among the oldest, if not the oldest manufacturer, at least in this country. And now I'm using the yellow. Closed in here so you can watch me work on the beak. I'm using a combination of white and black and gray. This is the gray. Of course, the beak is never purely black. There's always a sun reflection. And there are bumps and irregularities, and so there are reflections there as well. But when you're applying this acrylic marker, if you work very quickly, you can actually blend as you're marking. Okay. Bringing in the fine line first to indicate the top and bottom of the beak. And now I'm bringing the black in. Again, I'm using the brush tip. And I'm bringing in the gray over that. And you can see as the two blend together. And again, I'm not worried about it being smooth. I like the little bits of black that show through the gray. I'm going for the cartoon image, and I enjoy it. I'm just moving back and forth between the gray and the black. Causing a very nice texture. And there's a touch of the black left on the tip of the gray marker that's coming back in and blending just as you would with a brush. And we're bringing in the black again. Oh, looking much, much better. So now I'm working on using that same light gray on the claws of the bird and his or her legs. I don't know how to tell the difference between the male and the female. It's not necessarily easy with all bird species. The cardinals are easier because the cardinals are bright red and the females, while having the same crown, are brown. Just wanting to get it in there, take my time with it. Sometimes it's the tiniest details that make the difference in your work. And now I'm moving on to working on the bird's body with the same gray pen, not white. I didn't want to use a stark white. And just trying to decide where the highlights from the sunlight are going to be. While the bird is black, there are always reflections. I'm also laying over the black pen, which you might think is kind of weird since I'm working in black paper, but the marker is a little bit shinier and a little bit darker. And when it finally dries, all the colors will really be flat. They're not glossy paints. But I want to set it apart from the background in this way. And, if you're enjoying my video, now's a great time to click on that little like button for me. I understand like buttons are very important, but they feed my ego. One way or the other, I'm really glad that you're here watching. Now I'm working with purple on that tree branch, not trying to make a brown. And in fact, there is no brown in the Sharpie Creative Marker set, and there is no brown in this primary. Well, I have a primary set of Liquetex, so you have to create browns, but I thought I'm just going to go for that wonderful wild purple that I have in the background. Again, I'm really not concerned that it's completely smoothed over. I like little bits of that black showing through. It adds to the cartoon style of the work. And as I continue to work with the markers, I don't know that I'm necessarily going to continue in this style. I like to turn whatever medium I'm using into something that works just like a paint and a brush. And I know technically it is, but I like the feeling that it's a painting. And this is not a style exclusive to me. Many artists use this style in their work. And I have a little bit of a red highlight there in the background to indicate light. And I'm bringing in the red just to indicate a notion of light. And then blending the purple over it. And I'm not overdoing it. I'm not highlighting the entire branch. I just want to get the spots where the sun would hit it the most. As you can see, the purple looks different now that it's on top of the red, because I've moved it very quickly. It's not over a dry surface. I moved it quickly to be over a wet surface. They don't dry instantly. Now, time for me to sign my completed work. Thank you so much for being here with me and watching. I hope this video and the methods that I use are helpful. I will be doing some more videos on how best to use and blend the acrylic markers, and I hope you'll be able to tune in for those as well. If you click on that subscribe button, you'll be notified.